Hi, welcome to week 8. In this week, you're going to be designing a mock study. I encourage you to read through the unit outcomes as well as the assignment description. You're going to be creating a mock study that's either quasi-experimental or experimental. So it's going to be a quantitative study. If that's still a word you're not really familiar with, please definitely go into your book. There's a lot of guidance in your book on how to do this. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start off with your most recent version of your PICO question. Sometimes this morphs from your first version on. So the most recent version of the PICO question needs to be at the top. And then you need to provide what would your hypothesis be, and how would you get subjects, how would you address randomization, what threats could there be to the study, internal and external, how could those risks be reduced, what's the independent variable and the dependent variable. It's important to know the difference between those two very clearly. What instrument would be used to gather data? So this is like, would you use a specific tool, a Likert scale, questionnaires of different kinds, that kind of thing. What would your timeline be of the study? So even if you didn't put a time specific on your question, just a general timeline of how long you would follow that. So would the study be in facility or community based? Because nursing is applicable, both in and outside of the facilities. What are the strengths and what would the weaknesses be? And then what biases could there be as well? And so in these, for each one, you need to make sure that you give your answer. The answer portion is often just a simple word or two. Then in the rationale, that's where you can explain some. So let's say that you were doing a study on a very specific population that may not necessarily be the easiest to find. So let's say that you were doing it on survivors of breast cancer, but you didn't necessarily go through the medical records. You're doing community-based. One option you could do for getting subjects would be the snowball method, and so that could be your method. And the rationale in the snowball method is kind of a system of referrals. So you interview one person you know who had breast cancer, and they can tell you other people they know of who are also breast cancer survivors, and those people can tell you other people, and it kind of fans out. And so a rationale of why you chose the method, and then a citation. Now, many of these citations, you don't necessarily need a citation for what your hypothesis is. Although if there's articles out there that that you did in your review for anti-bibliography, you can certainly add those here, just the citation part. Again, the references will be down at the bottom, kind of like they were in previous weeks. So for these others of how you would address randomization and different threats, internal, external validity, these are not things that are just commonly known in day-to-day knowledge. So you do need to have citations down for those. And your citation can be your textbook, but if you look, you do need to have at least one other scholarly source other than your textbook. And so you may be able to find information. Let's say that we're looking at some of the strengths or weaknesses or the instruments, and in the articles you've already reviewed, you found an article that had something similar to what you're looking at. And so let's say that you want to use an instrument that was used in one of the studies, even though you're looking at a slightly different population. That's okay. What you're going to do is you're going to find that instrument, and you can use that article that talks about that instrument use as your citation. And so just kind of play around with that. You're going to be creating a fictitious study, but it does need to be logical. It needs to make sense that it could actually be a thing. Then you can put your references here. Remember, reference lists go in alphabetical order, and it's a really good practice to continue to do that. It's worth 3% of your grade, and there's the rubric down there at the bottom. So if you have any questions, please let us know.